There are different structural views of power. There is the class perspective developed by Marx and Engels. In that perspective, you talk about power being invested in the ownership of the means of production, resulting in a bourgeoisie class controlling power at the detriment of workers who constitute the dependent class. This on its own leads to class conflict. That's why I said Dangote is a man of power. They control production. A maker of four is a man of power. They control wealth, and they use wealth to penetrate the hearts of the people. Wealth gives you influence. There's also the elite concept of power. In this case, power divides society into a dominant and dependent class. But it anchors the influence of the dominant class, the elite, on competence, excellence, and aptitude, like you see in Britain. The dominant elites are brilliant. They attended Oxford, Cambridge. They are nobles. They are well-read. That's the elite concept of power. So for you to emerge as prime minister in Britain is almost a law that you must attend one of the best universities. But it's not a law, because John Major became British prime minister. But majority of them, Oxford, Cambridge. Here we also have the elite concept of power, but our elite are not as brilliant as the elite. There are some brilliant ones, but not as brilliant. I want us to listen to this interview as we round off. I have not finished my script, and I don't have to finish it though. I don't have to. I may also decide to finish it in another edition of the program. I had this interview with Nasir El-Rufai before he became the governor of Kaduna State. The interview was to review this book. This is another good book. I don't know if you have read it, The Accidental Public Servant. In fact, it's like this book was about Obasanjo and Atiku. This book, Accidental Public Servant, by Nasir El-Rufai, is the autobiography, The Accidental Public Servant. He wrote this book before he became the governor of Kaduna State, more than 600 pages. So I read this book, and I wanted to talk to him about some of the points he raised in the book. We just got some copies again. In fact, we've never had this book on Udara Books. By the time Udara Books came on stream, the book was scarce. But luckily, we got some few copies recently. I want you to read this book. If you are interested in the game of power, base your argument on facts. They are telling their own stories. Sometimes they may also lie. But once you read this as a scholar, you'll be able to find a loophole. Or they might tell their story to favor themselves. Let me not use the word lie. You tell your story to favor yourself. But once you have read this, you can say, okay, this is what it's about. So I recommend The Accidental Public Servant, written by Nasir El-Rufai, to you. You'll find it on udarabooks.com or through our WhatsApp numbers. So Nasir El-Rufai on State Affairs.
State Affairs with Edmondo Bilo is live.
Obasanjo only began to try to get interested in controlling the PDP around the middle of 2005. Until then, look, people forgot that in 2003, Obasanjo had to go and beg Atiku to support him to be president because he had no control over it. People forget that, and they turn around and say Obasanjo was this dictator. It was only from about 2005, when Obasanjo was leaving office, that he began to see the need to have a greater say on how the party was run, so that he would determine his successor. That was when he pushed out.
So that he could fight for a third term.
Okay, initially to fight for a third term, and then to determine his successor. That was when Audu Ogba was pushed out. Until then, Obasanjo had very little control over the party.
So there was a third term agenda.
There was a third term.
Can you tell us about it?
I don't want to say anything about it because I want to write about it at the right time.
Were you among the ministers pushing for a third term?
No, I was not. I was one of those opposed.
Why were you opposed to it?
Because I didn't believe it was right. I believe that you build democracy by doing your bit and moving on and allowing succession.
Was Obasanjo happy with you?
He was not.
But Obasanjo has denied there was a third term agenda.
Well, you should ask him. I know that there was a third term agenda.
You knew about the millions of naira that were sent to the National Assembly?
Monies were distributed to members of the National Assembly, true.
The Obasanjo government was a corrupt government.
Look, there is no government in the world that is not corrupt. The issue is how corrupt is it? Okay. From time, every government has some bit of corruption. There is no society without corruption. But when you say sweeping statement like Obasanjo was a corrupt government, you are not being fair. And why are you asking me about Obasanjo's government? I was minister of the FCT. Can you ask me if the FCT was a corrupt administration?
You were like a de facto vice president when Atiku was in trouble.
That is your opinion. Obasanjo and Atiku's problem started around 2006. That was when they fell out. So between 2003 and 2006, I was not de facto vice president. When did I become de facto vice president? These are all stories that people put around, to create. I was minister of the Federal Capital Territory. Okay, don't ask me to defend Obasanjo's government because
you were beyond that ministry.
No, because I was one out of 45 ministers. Ask me to defend my.
You were Obasanjo's right-hand man.
Obasanjo did not have one right hand. Ngozi was Obasanjo's right-hand woman. Obi Ezekwesili was Obasanjo's right-hand woman. Nuhu Ribadu was Obasanjo's right-hand man. Charles Soludo was Obasanjo's right-hand man.
State Affairs with Edmondo Bilo is live.
All right. Yeah, I remember this was the interview before this book was written. Yes, 2012. I had that interview with him in 2012. Before this book was written. Then when this book was written, I then sat down with him to scrutinize this book. Someday I will broadcast that interview to you. I've not even broadcast the full clip. I know I did some on Splash FM.